Amy, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, what better way to spend Memorial Day than recording a little video about the EEOC's latest guidance on vaccinations and COVID-19? Couldn't think of a better way to spend it.
I mean, I can't think of anything I'd rather do than talk to you about this. I was so excited when the EOC guidance dropped. I have been waiting for months.
I can't wait to get outside into some of that 60-degree Northeast weather. So let's not make this too long. But what caught your eye most from the EEOC's guidance?
Well, it was no surprise to me, although I was really glad to see it, that the EOC has basically green-lighted incentives, that employers can provide incentives to employees to get vaccinated, as long as the incentives are not what the EOC deems coercive. That would really require employees to get the vaccine. Like if they didn't, it would be, it would look like a penalty. What the EOC said was, any incentive is fine, but it can't be so substantial so as to be coercive.
And that's only if they're doing it through their own program. So,
Correct.
Like used to do flu shots back in the day, you say employees line up, get your shot, then it can't be coercive. But if you say to an employee, look, go to your local Rite Aid, CVS, wherever, go get your shot, bring in proof, we'll give you a trip to Tahiti. All good, right? All good.
I don't know. The trip to Tahiti might be deemed a bit much.
But I could if I wanted to, if I was the employer. The coercive language isn't there if it's done by a third party unaffiliated with the employer. So, But I don't know. I mean, I think we're at the point right now where if you want that vaccine, you've gotten it. If you don't want that vaccine, you're not going to get it, I think, unless you're a child, and then it's your parents who are telling you what to do. So I think it's more about masks right now. And one of the things that threw me for a loop in the new guidance is about you can ask for proof. They reaffirmed that, but how do you set up a system where only the vaccinated employees can take the mask off at work and the unvaccinated employees have to leave it on? Because the EEOC says in its guidance in K4, and I'll drop a link in the description below to the guidance, says in K4 that the ADA requires an employer to maintain the confidentiality of employee medical information such as documentation or other confirmation of COVID-19 vaccination. So I could check for proof at the beginning, but I can't make you wear a sticker, it sounds like, because that would be other confirmation of COVID-19 vaccination, right?
That's right. That's right. Or the green bracelet that we talked about that last time.
Yeah, that would be stylish. Have all the vaccinated people who go maskless wear a green bracelet as a kind of a belt and suspenders to prove that you're actually vaccinated.
Yep.
So what
Yes,
are we
I thought that was
about?
interesting too. What we're talking about is I think kind of the same issue as we were talking about when we were doing COVID testing. I had a parallel. I drew a parallel in my head there when everybody can know that a certain person is out and has COVID, but you can't use the person's name. You remember that? Remember that in 2020?
Right.
I mean, it looks like the honor system wins. It looks like you're really going to have to go with the honor system unless you figure out some other way that doesn't violate this EEOC guidance. But I think the honor system, I think you are right. The honor system was the way to go.
Well, there's another option. We just mandate that everyone gets vaccinations. That can be done.
Sure. Sure. And then you come back to your problem of what do we do with people who are not going to get vaccinated for either because they're pregnant, because of a disability, because of a sincerely held religious belief, or that nebulous fourth category. What if they're just not going to do it?
Well, categories 1, 2, and 3, the EEOC doubled down. That sounds pejorative. They reaffirmed that if you have a disability, if you have a sincerely held belief, or you're pregnant and you need an accommodation, then the employer's got to immediately pivot into an interactive dialogue to see what can be done, if anything, to reasonably accommodate that individual to get around the vaccination requirement. So what are we talking about?
Yes.
Examples could be continued telework, you wear a mask, you socially
Modified schedule.
distance, right? You work, you put the office somewhere else where it's not near
Right.
everyone else. There are things we can do at this point. It's not that big of a deal.
Right, a staggered shift. And I think the EEOC was very clear that employers really can't short shrift that interactive process, that there are a wide variety of reasonable accommodations out there from which to choose from. And I would remind employers too, that this is an ongoing duty. You know, I feel like that often gets lost in the process. But it's that other category of people, right? People who, as you say, you think that people who are going to get vaccinated have gotten vaccinated already. So what if, you know, you're talking about a workplace where you, the employer, have mandated vaccines, and you have a group of people, 1 or 2 people, 3 or 4 people who've decided, I'm not doing it, I'm not getting it. And they don't have a disability, they don't have a sincerely held religious belief, and they're not pregnant. Are you going to you can exclude them from the workplace, right? The EEOC guidance says that, but how will that work? How does that work? Are you gonna, you know, fire potentially a third of your workforce? So that's really the conundrum.
Right. Another thing the EEOC cautioned was that for fully vaccinated people, they still may need an accommodation if they have an underlying, you know, they're immunocompromised, an underlying disability. So don't forget about that. Don't just assume, oh, you're vaccinated, don't worry about it. You still need to have an interactive dialogue. Yeah,
no, that's true. I think it was interesting how much time the EEOC guidance spent on family members. And I think we should talk about that, because that's such an issue, you know, because employees don't come into the office in a vacuum, right? They go home to their families. And so if an employer is mandating the vaccine, the additional guidance on GINA and some alternatives suggested, I thought was really interesting. And I think it's confusing for employers based on what they can mandate toward their employees and where the line is with family members. What do you think about that aspect?
Well, one line that the EEOC clearly drew was that you can offer incentives to employees to get vaccinated, but you can't offer incentives to have family members of employees get vaccinated.
Right.
I hadn't heard about that before. Although it wouldn't shock me if some businesses were thinking about that being like overly safe, you know. We want our employees in a safe, COVID-free environment, both in the workplace and at home. So let's incent their household members to get vaccinated. Can't do that for family members.
Or overly benevolent. You know, I could see, or overly benevolent. I could see like a big company, you know, like a Costco or something like that, saying, you know, all employees and your families, we're having vaccine clinics here, you know, in an employer provided program. All employees and their families can come. We'll provide you with lunch. Is that an incentive?
That's a good point. EEOC also clarified, based on what the current pre-screening questionnaire looks like, that GINA is generally not implicated when you're asked for an employee who's getting a COVID-19 vaccination. The pre-screening questionnaires, as of I think May 27th, the official ones aren't asking about genetics or family history, so there's no GINA implication there. Of course, if you as the employer or your agent were to design a new one that said, tell me all about the cancer history in your family, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I also found very interesting and heartening, you know, to see a little interagency cooperation there. As you recall, we talked a lot about that CDC toolkit. You know, as employment lawyers, we love a toolkit. It just saves on drafting time. And the CDC had put out a toolkit for essential workers, but which is really helpful for any kind of employer, talking about an education campaign and how can you encourage your employees to get vaccinated. And so in the context of talking about GINA and talking about what you can and can't ask, implicating family members, and their health through that act, I thought it was really interesting that they talked about, look, if you want family members to be vaccinated too, use this toolkit, use the CDC toolkit. It's so great. Provided a helpful link to the CDC toolkit, which, just as a reminder for folks, I think we talked about it on one webinar, has sample social media messages, sample fact sheets, for employees and employers, sample PowerPoint, sample email messages, which I found was so helpful. So if you can't, ask about a family member, if you can't require family members to get vaccinated, pursuant to GINA, you can extend that education to the employee and the employee's family. Thought that was interesting.
I thought that was good too. I agree with you. But the EEOC also stayed in its lane, where there's a little preamble when it updated its vaccine information, referencing the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Food and Drug Administration for the administration of the COVID-19 vaccines. EEOC mentioned that it got a lot of questions from employers and employees about the types of authorizations that HHS and the FDA grant for use of these COVID-19 vaccines. Because under the ADA, no issue mandating the vaccine. But under FDA and HHS and the EUA guidance, is there a problem? EEOC said, that's not our jurisdiction. Sorry, folks. Sorry, you got to deal with that.
I totally agree. They also said, they also noted the CDC masking, the lifting of the masking requirements, on May 13th, 2021. The CDC said, okay, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask, except where required by federal, state, local, tribal law, or, by, any local business and workplace guidance. The EEOC exempted its new guidance from that entirely, which I found interesting that they didn't work it in, and said the EEOC is considering the impact of the CDC's guidance on its technical assistants, and I think that is such still an issue on how we work our mask policies in with this. Okay, we can mandate vaccines, we can incentivize, we can't ask this, we can't ask that. We have ADA confidentiality to comply with, yet we don't have guidance yet from the EEOC on masks. I think that's tough. And I'm looking forward to when the EEOC incorporates the mask guidance.
Yeah. Well, anything else? I think this has been pretty good. I think people like watching this. I mean, I've seen a lot of blog posts by other people and firms. Here's what employers need to know about the new EEOC guidance. Maybe watching our two lovely faces talk about it for 5 or 10 minutes.
You can read the link. We think we trust our clients, our friends, all y'all. We think you can read the link, and we'll put that up. I'll put it on the FisherBroyles blog, and you're going to put it on your blog, right?
Of course, it'll be there. All right, Amy.
So 3 takeaways.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can incentivize. You can incentivize employees to get vaccinated. You can require vaccines. What else? You can't ask about family members.
Can't ask about family members. And if you're going to do if you're going to have some kind of system set up where only the vaccinated folks can take their mask off in the workplace and the unvaccinated folks can't, strongly consider the honor system. That's the leading candidate at this point. Otherwise, you may get yourself in trouble if you require people to not only, they can show the proof of vaccination, but then the issue is displaying kind of on their lapel or something, the documentation that backs up that they actually got vaccinated, a sticker, wearing their card laminated or something.
Right,
The guidance pretty much says don't do that.
right. You can require proof, but not for somebody to display it on their person.
You said it a lot better than I did.
Just a little shorter.
Yeah, I gotta work on that. All right, I'm gonna cut it off here.
So I think it's time for a hike. Time for us to enjoy that beautiful weather.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day, Amy. I'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.